What's up guys, this is Zerodomai Kitsune with a new episode of Fox Guide Skyrim mods. Now, this episode is going to be special because I'm deciding to move the channel in a more mechanics focused series. Because I heard that's what y'all liked out of me talking. So we're going to start off with one of my favorite mod authors. This is the Alex9ndre special. And we're starting with Vigor Combat Enhanced. Wait. What? New mod? But the old one's still there. What do you mean this is improved and you didn't take the other one down? Hold on a moment.
2,000 years later.
This is Vigor Combat and Injuries. Okay. Here's my review on the MCM menu for Vigor Combat and Injuries. As you see here, you have the start button, which allows you to start the mod. It's not active when you start the game, making it so you can load into the beginning of your game without any troubles. This is a really good option. Fatigue. This applies debuffs whenever your stamina is low. Now, in my initial review of this mod, I said disable this because I felt it was just way too punishing. But on the second review, I think that it's fine if you tweak some of the other settings to allow you to have a little bit more stamina. Adrenaline rush is off because I feel it's too perky and you didn't earn it. Maybe a perk mod can add this, but nah, not in this one. And also I hate the little text on the top. Stamina regeneration bonus. This is good whenever you're above 50% stamina. You gain, your stamina increases. Feels pretty realistic, and also gives you a reason not to use up all your stamina to fight. Pick your swings, attack, block, back off, all that such. The stamina buffer is off because you see it as a bonus in the game. So if you go into your level up menu, you'll see plus 100 to your stamina, and that it irritated me too much for me to leave it on. Stamina actions. Your things like jumping, swinging your sword, swimming, these all will drain stamina from you. I think it's pretty useful, pretty immersive, and since this is one of the lightest mods I can find that provides this function, I leave it on. As you can see, the scaling allows you to tweak those numbers as you see fit. I just love how many options this mod has. Stamina drain while running, I have that off because it's hard to manage your stamina in combat when you're punished for repositioning, especially when fighting against multiple opponents. That is really where this mod kinda goes for me when fighting multiple opponents, as that stamina control is insanely hard, especially at the beginning of the game. Tireless supernatural creatures means if you're a werewolf or you're a vampire, fatigue will affect you less, and well, basically that gives you another reason to play werewolves and vampires, especially werewolves, because I feel like in this game werewolves kind of get shafted in the functionality. When you're not in werewolf form, it's kind of meh. Now, injuries. Injuries mean that when your health hits a set bracket in the 25, so when you hit 25% health, 50% health, and 75% health, you have a chance to get an injury. These apply debuffs that are both short lasting and another debuff that is very long lasting. This counteracts insane health regens because if you can just knock your opponent below the 75% marker several times, the debuffs will stack and eventually they'll be too weak to fight. So it's a good balancing feature for anyone who has insane health regen, even the player. Deadly bleeding allows the bleeding that injuries can cause to kill you. Normally this is off, and I leave it off because this allows it to not conflict with death alternative mods, and even though I don't run them, still a good thing to leave off. Bleeding chance. This is a chance that an injury will cause bleeding. Nothing said about that. These control when you get injuries. See another time when you can just fully tweak this mod. Hell, I'd say mod author add more of these. I love them. I love them so much. Just all these customizational functions. You could make this mod perfect for yourself. And disable passive health regen. I'm on the fence on leaving this on or off. I use Imperious Races of Skyrim, so you know that health regen was kind of tweaked by the mod author. It feels a shame to just disable it, but I have it disabled. Now this says for when the player is below 75% health. I don't know if that's a typo because I just updated the mod, but reading the mod page, he said he just got rid of the health regen entirely, so even at 100%. That kind of made me sad. I liked having that 25% marker where you still had your free health regen. So if it's the new system, a little bit more reason for me to turn it off. Is for the old system, I'm perfectly fine with 75%. I wish there was like a customization to allow you to tweak it. I'd probably set it at 50%. You still get natural healing. Combat, I have movement and damage off. It adds a lot of little perky things with little messages across the top that affect your damage. Not for me, so I left it off. Critical damage. This gives every weapon a critical hit chance that scales on the skill of your weapon. So one-handed swords, the crit damage from them scales with one-handed. Daggers scale with one-handed and your sneak stat. And you now don't need any perks to crit with your weapons. So really good. Time blocking. Unlike other mods, this time blocking does more than just make it so you take less damage because you perfectly timed your block. It also reflects damage to your opponent. That is really creative and allows this to stack on top of other mods that add time blocking. So I will always leave this on. More protective heavy armor. This makes it so heavy armor reduces the damage you take from different types of weapons, because this mod adds a lot to, well, his companion mod, which I'll go over in a bit, adds a lot to armor and such. This gives a reason for heavy armor because light armor kind of trumps him in the vanilla game. Disarm makes it so when you get hit by a melee attack, when you have your bow out, you have a chance to drop your bow. Really good for when you have mods that make archers insanely powerful, but a little bit OP if you don't run those, and your archers are kind of dealing like scratch damage to you anyway. Still fun to watch you knock a bow out of an enemy's hand, like fuck you. Disabled friendly fire, self-explanatory, I leave it on. Stagger. When you lose certain amounts of health, I'm not sure if it's tied to the injury system, but if it isn't, please add in their own little brackets to the MCM, but if it is, then ignore what I just said. But when you lose a certain amount of health, you stagger chance you see down here, but this kind of gives you this whole poise system, you know, from Dark Souls to your staggering, except using the health bar of the vanilla system, one that you can tweak with perks and level ups and all that such. I love it when game mechanics use the vanilla system, because again, you can use perks and stuff to affect them instead of just being its own isolated function that you can't really change at all. Magic, spell scaling. Tons of mods add this feature, so I just leave it disabled. And other mods are balanced around the fact that spells don't scale, so again, I leave it disabled. But as you get better at a particular art like destruction, conjuration, your spell's strength or its duration will increase. Disable start magicka. This puts minus 100 magicka to your character from the beginning. That's kinda about it. I leave it off. If this had varying effects depending on the race you're running, I'd probably have it on, because, you know, playing, I don't know, a Nord and having like no magicka, so if you want to be a Nord mage, you have to work for it, and maybe having NPC support for that'd be pretty cool, but probably would break a lot of mods and gameplay, so I don't know. NPC support, this just, you know, adds support for all these other functions to the NPCs. I guess maybe you can lighten up the script load if you turn this off, but this is already a really light mod. Bandages for NPCs. When NPCs are wounded, they will equip bandages to allow them to heal. Really cool function, because I read somewhere that apparently NPCs that aren't your followers just can't naturally heal themselves, and like, holy crap, I never noticed that. So this fixes that. Now, for in combat, NPCs use potions. this basically allows NPCs to use spells that simulate potions, because Skyrim's AI is shit when it comes to dealing with potions. They can only use health potions and I think magica potions. But this, since they're spells technically, adds in a huge variety of potions for the NPC to use. Healing ones, fortify ones, resist ones, invisibility ones. Just really cool. If he could add even more potion types, I love it to death. And finally, the attack speed fix. Because Bethesda coded attack speed in this game horribly. If you don't have an attack speed fix in your game, you should probably get one. And mod creators who have attack speed bonuses in their game, they should probably make their mods with the intent of people running an attack speed fix and just push for the community to everyone run some form of attack speed fix. But that's the MCM menu. Okay. To sum up my opinions on this mod, I'd have to say it's one of the most modular and compatible combat mods out of all the ones I've seen. And that's a super plus in my book. Compatibility is a must. All the functions tweakable to your liking. I actually turned off a lot of the functions in this mod, and sometimes I cut them back on just to make sure I made the right decision cutting them off. But just having that option is great. It is not a very lore friendly combat mod, I guess would be the best way to describe it. It's not very realistic. There you go. It's very gamey in its functionalities, a poise system, injuries that, since this isn't Fallout 4, you don't have a way to determine where you're hitting them, and this mod does not have locational damage because locational damage is a mess coding wise. But with that said, Skyrim is a game, so I feel this perfectly goes together. Strong recommendation on this mod. Now we have weapons and armor attributes. Now as you can see, we have the mod start button, and just like the previous mod, that allows this mod not to interfere with anything potentially starting the game. But your main module is armor attributes, which adds different statistic boost to your armor. So like plus 5% fire, plus 10% shock resistance, all that stuff. Now, the cool things are things like glass armor, which have the effect of getting stronger when hit by fire spells and weaker when hit by ice spells. And that's really cool, and there are some other ones that have similar effects like that. But next is the clothing attributes mod, which is basically like the armor attributes mod with effects like 10% better smithing while wearing a blacksmith's apron, but with more fire debuffs because you're wearing clothing. Clothing burns. Now, no armor bonuses basically makes it so streaking around naked is fun and more stealthy and mobile, having stamina bonuses and, like I said, stealth bonuses. Weapon attributes gives different attack speeds for different types of weapons, like war axes swing slower than great swords, etc., and gives secondary effects to all the weapons, like Daedric weapons having increased damage for every Daedric quest you complete. So you got some cool stuff there. Before I go to the next one warning though is if you wield two weapons that are supposed to be slow, those slows will stack, and so dual wielding two really heavy longswords, you get exactly what you think you should. Weather influences basically makes it so anything short of a hot summer day turns you into a lightning rod. Your resistances for everything except fire go down in poor weather. So if you're raining, don't fight shock mages. Snowing, don't fight ice mages. So that's cool. And I haven't said much about the actual turning them on or off, because what this mod comes with is basically what you want to leave them with, except for this last one, which I do have turned off, equipment restrictions. This makes it so when you're wielding a weapon, first of all all weapons have a particular level requirement. And if you wield that weapon and you don't meet that level requirement, it'll make it so armor slows you down, swords swing slower or deal less damage, and you know, the less damage one would be fine. All of the effects are fine. My only issue is that I felt like it was applying on random things, and even though I was starting a new game, it's just really weird to handle. I mean, my Imperial armor, yes, I side with the Imperials. I was under level for it, but that was basic Imperial armor. That was weird. So I cut it off. Maybe I'll cut it back on the further I am in the game when it's a little bit more manageable and not just scrounging for any armor I can take. But for now, I leave it off, and I recommend you do so as well. Now, for optional modules, you have Realistic Encumbrance, which doesn't actually affect your inventory encumbrance, but instead gives you movement speed, sneak, and regeneration debuffs when you're wielding heavy armor, completely separate from the perks, which in certain set of perks, not the one I'm using, but most of them, make it so when you're actually wearing heavy armor, it actually weighs nothing to you, removing the base game's balance for heavy and light armors. So this just makes it so there's more balance. Smithing tweaks, that makes so stronger equipment gets better bonuses and weaker equipment get weaker bonuses. Just a way to make sense and a way to make it so you can't have the Imperial Longbow of Doom that beats out a Daedric longbow. Let's see. Enchantment tweaks, similar deal, but in a different way. Now, small weapons like daggers will get longer enchantments, so you can swing them more without using them because it's a smaller weapon and, you know, the enchantment's more contained, while larger weapons get stronger enchantments, but they're weaker and you consume more of them per swing. I don't know, I personally think just make it so larger weapons just have worse enchantments because, you know, smaller things like a dagger. I have the image of a mage always having a backup dagger that's super powerful and enchanted, but that's just me. Either way, leave it on. Poison tweaks, I'm not much of a poison user, so I barely even noticed this was a thing, but this makes so heavier weapons have less of an effect when you poison them, while piercing weapons have stronger effects when you poison them. These obviously just slashing the opponent with the poison would poison them less than someone who actually stabs them with that coated dagger. Disabling crafting guide comes natively disabled, and that's because the effect's kinda meh. This basically makes it so that exploit with fortify enchants, fortify alchemy, smithing, enchanting, it gets rid of it by making it 90% weaker. It's an exploit, yes, but I feel like other mods fix the exploit better than this, which is basically a stat debuff to it. So I leave it off. Obviously, just like the previous mod, we have NPC support. Disable it if you want to make this virtually non-script heavy, I don't even know what to call it, thing, even less script heavy. Yeah, those are words. And the attack speed fix is once again the same thing. If you have the previous mod, don't use this one's attack speed fix because if you stack them, everyone will be swinging at 99 miles per hour. This mod, as simple as it may seem, has a profound effect on the entire game, as you may use a fire spell on certain enemies and get little to no benefit from it, and yet other enemies you can take down almost instantly, forcing you to change up your playstyle. The only issue I have with this mod is that some of the statistics and some of the scaling statistics are hidden, and this is, from what I understand, due to a technical limitation of the game, but I just wish that the mod author would find a way to get those stats to be visible inside of the powers menu. Seeing exactly how much of a benefit I get from Imperial armor because I have a speechcraft bonus would be really nice, even if it required adding even more stats to your active effects menu, but that's just my opinion. Otherwise, much like the first mod, this mod is a guaranteed go-to mod. our last two mods do not have MCM menus, but I'm still going to try to use this format with them anyway. If this format doesn't work, I'll go back to my older format. But this is Bring Your Silver. Now, Bring Your Silver modifies the evil hunting features of Skyrim, particularly the vampires and werewolves, but Draugr as well. Now, it does this by modifying the silver weapons in the game. All silver weapons and ammunition, including bolts and arrows, now have new effects added to them to make them stronger against vampires and werewolves. This also goes to the Dawn Guard weapons, the Vigilant weapons, and the Silver Hand weapons. Now, this mod also adds new weapons like the Corrupted Silver weapons, which vampire characters can wield. Now, a good thing about these Corrupted Silver weapons is because if you are a vampire or a werewolf, wielding silver weapons or wearing silver armor will debuff you severely. And I'm talking 100-point debuff for vampires and 50-point debuff for werewolves, so it hurts. But the corrupted weapons can be wielded by vampires and werewolves without the negative effects, making it so even if you've chosen one of those paths, you can still use these weapons against other vampires, werewolves, or Draugr. Now, another new weapon type are the vampiric weapons, which drain health on hit and have a chance to hit your opponent with a swarm of bats. So it makes vampires stronger and they don't have to depend on that drain life spell that they're constantly blasting in their other hand, so it makes fighting them a lot more interesting. Another thing is the silver powder and silver spells. These add basically poisons and magic for alternative ways to fight mythical creatures without having to depend on a particular weapon type. The second and biggest function of this mod are the unique weapons. Now, there are a couple of unique weapons added and also unique weapons changed. So characters like Keeve the Skinner, who you fight in one of the earliest quests actually, when you become a werewolf, has been buffed with these new weapons that are stronger than normal anti-werewolf weapons. And once you kill them, I don't even remember, you gain these weapons. Vigilants now have unique weapons that you can loot for more powerful anti-mythical creature enchants, and the Stendarr set in particular you can grab and it gives you a very powerful buff against Daedra undead and werewolves. The last function, which is probably the biggest function, are the buffs that enemies get from this mod. Draugr take less damage from non-silver weapons and even more from non-piercing weapons. Skeletons take reduced damage from non-silver weapons and non-blunt weapons, so you need to have a war axe when fighting skeletons. I learned that the hard way. Vampires take 75% less damage from non-silver weapons, and ghosts take 90% less damage from non-silver Daedric or ghost weapons. So these buffs, and there are more, but these buffs in particular make it so the game is a lot harder if you don't gear yourself in preparation for these enemy types. But it can also be a lot more exciting to go into a dungeon, not know what kind of enemy you're facing, and all of a sudden realize, oh crap, I have the wrong weapons, and still have to fight your way through it. I actually don't have any problems with this mod. I just have one little annoyance. If you have a mod that automatically equips arrow types with your bows, be very careful if you're a vampire or werewolf, as I got hit with the debuff particularly hard in a couple fights because I forgot my bow was auto set to put on silver arrows, and silver arrows, even though it's just the tip, do give you the full debuff. So be very careful on that. And also, if you're a vampire, just don't wield Dawnbreaker. Just don't. Now, our final mod is Dwarven Automaton Weapons, which, unlike the other mods, just decides to focus on new weapons while still creating a handful of blanket changes to the game, but this time focused around Dwarven. Now, this mod primarily adds 17 new weapons, the most important being the Deconstruct Hammer, which allows you to craft all the other weapons from Dwarven parts. Now, to obtain these Dwarven parts, obviously you need to kill Dwarven enemies, but that is harder due to this mod making all Dwarven enemies stronger by giving them at the very least 100 bonus armor. Now, while they have this 100 bonus armor, this can be penetrated using one of the new 17 Dwarven weapons. Each one has a unique effect that makes Dwarven enemies weaker, allowing them to malfunction, short circuit, or just simply bypass the bonus armor that they got. Now, I find this mod to be a lot of fun because it adds a bunch of unique weapons like the Forge Master's Axe and Hammer, the Dwarven Centurion Axe, and the Dwarven Spear Sword. But actually there's not really a but here. It's just really fun. The hardest you'll have is dealing with them early on because they'll have all those bonus stats and you won't be able to penetrate them. So it's a little bit of an uphill battle, but once you get one of the new Dwarven weapons, it's a-okay from there. And it's really fun. It's a nice way to get new Dwarven themed characters for a mechanic style player. And I mean mechanic is in mechanic, like cars and technology, not mechanics as in, gameplay mechanics. But I'm rambling. A whole lot of fun. Add this mod to your Lord Order if you want a Dwarven themed experience. So that wraps up this episode of Fox Guide Skyrim Mods. I know this episode's a bit janky and really long, but I really wanted to try out this new format. If it doesn't work, then oh well, I'll go back to the old one. But tell me how you feel about this episode in the comment section. I wait with bated breath, but I'll take what I get. And I'll see you next time.